So Frontenac Schools is a rural 3A district. Currently, our district goals are based on ACT scores. However, we continue to see a decline in our state assessment scores in all areas, especially once our students get to the high school level. So we are looking for ways that we can encourage students to perform better, as well as increase the teacher participation in increasing those scores. But we want to make sure that we're doing so within the school day. For a lot of students in this area, we are a very low social, economical, impoverished population. So a lot of our parents are fine with paying for outside help and tutoring as related to high achieving tests. So we want to make sure that we're providing opportunities within the school district for our students to increase their scores and have a better performance. Right now, this past year, we had some discrepancies. We actually were in some of the lower percentiles across the state. However, when we look at our state average for ACT, we are above the state average. So we are looking for ways to ensure that we're using data to make decisions based on not only who is taking the ACT, but also how do we go in and we meet the needs for those specific students to target the areas where they are scoring poorly. And ideally, we would want to move closer to that 75%, but right now we're closer to 13%. So our goal for next year, we're looking at roughly 20%, which is still 7 percentile is a large portion because we are a smaller district.
Okay, and is your school smaller as well?
We are, we're just under 1,000 students pre-K-12, and we're all housed under one building.
And it is one building. That's interesting. So it sounds to me like, so what I'm hearing is the concern is how do you then use the time within the school day so that it's an opportunity for all students, whether they can afford outside tutoring or not, that they could then have not only ACT prep time, but actually preparation in the school day to help prepare them for the state test. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the state, I have just a couple questions. So the state test, is that, just to clarify, is the state test a requirement for your students to graduate? Passing that state test? It is.
It is not.
Okay.
Students are required to participate. At the 10th grade, they're taking reading and math, and then in 11th grade, they're currently just taking science. Social studies is actually in the process of revamping their test, so students are not currently required to take that. However, the state does have requirements for the district as it's tied to federal funding.
Right, because of the federal funding. Correct. And your participation is mandatory, but but it is not a graduation requirement. That's interesting.
That's correct.
So and for those students that are not passing, then is there any recourse, I guess is my question, because the state, as long as a certain percentage is participating, the state funding, is that state funding provided as long as a certain percentage is participating, or does a certain percent have to pass as well?
It is just participation. If we fall below a certain percentile, then we would be classified as a title school or could possibly have some consequences that way, but the students individually have no consequences for their scores.
Okay, right. So then the buy-in part there of them like needing to pass that, so that I feel like that's that's kind of an interesting position you find yourselves in if it's not a graduation requirement. However, the ACT scores, your preparation, you're getting the results that you're designed to get, because it sounds to me like the emphasis has been on the ACT and you've been successful in that area.
Well, and we have a large number of students who, when we look at our post-secondary success, we were, I believe 3 years ago, we were in the top 3 across the state. So we have a large number that go on to a 4-year university. So our students understand the value of ACT and how that's so closely related to not only acceptance, but also funding that would be available. So I guess what I am needing is information about how do, ideally I'm assuming this is going to be an MTSS model of some kind. With it being high school, that's not something that I've been able to find a lot of research about. There's not any schools in our area who are successfully implementing this at the high school level. And I know what I really like about the MTSS is the fact that it's using that continuous data to make decisions, to place students, to monitor their growth, and then make changes about where they fall into the system. So I feel like that would not only give the remediation for those lower students, but would also provide some enrichment opportunities to push those higher students and increase everyone's scores.
Right. So just a couple of ideas that come to mind right now is, do you perhaps like an advocacy or advisory? Here at our middle school, we call it an advisory period, and at the high school, at our high school, it's called an advocacy period. Do you guys have anything like that built in your schedule?
We have it's roughly 35 minutes. It's like 37 minutes at the end of the day. During that time, they do work on individual plans of study. However, a lot of it is more of a study hall where students can go and visit teachers where they have issues with a certain assignment, or maybe they've been absent in a particular class. But that's also a time where students will get exempt from that period and be able to go home early if they have decent grades or a low number of discipline points. So sometimes we don't have all the students in the building for that period.
At that time, okay. Because one thing that I would say is that I've seen we've had success with is using that time, that advocacy or advisory period, whatever your school may call it, but then use that time to use, so it's during the school day, and you can provide the intervention and or enrichment by using some sort of a screener, depending on with your grades where the different grades take different subjects. You may focus on math for a certain grade and have them take a screener, and then that screener identifies what intervention or enrichment class they could go to during that time. So instead of reporting to their advisory teacher, they might report to Mr. So-and-so because he's teaching that lesson on fractions. And so by using that universal screener, everybody's getting the screening, and then you can see where those students are. I think an available opportunity for your high achievers could be for enrichment projects, or you could keep it as they could get checked out. And then the incentive is there for students to work hard and really apply themselves in that intervention or enrichment time to then get to the point where they could earn extra time either out of school or earn the opportunity to go work on an enrichment project instead of working on intervention. So that's a model that we've seen, and because it's a common time for everybody in the building, everyone is teaching, and you can split the kids up into groupings where you may have one or two teachers that are working on multiplication with some of the kids, or fractions, or I would suggest probably one subject focus, but by applying that universal screener, and like you said, you can use then the current data, right, up to date current data to make those decisions that are happening. So it's not just necessarily like their class placement for the year, but it's their intervention placement. And then if they progress, like by using a progress monitor, you can monitor where they're at, and they can progress up through the other places, the other courses. And that's an easy thing to put like on a 3-week rotation, which is traditionally what is recommended as a 3-week intervention, and then just check in and see how it's going. So that's a suggestion that I would have during maybe during the school day.
Right. Have you had success with any specific screeners or progress monitoring?
So in our school, what we have used as a screener, we have access to the MAP test, the MAP assessment. Do you guys use that?
We don't. Due to budget cuts, that was one of the things that we lost, unfortunately.
Right. So we have one of those. We've also used AimsWeb in the past as a screener for math as well as reading, and we have used. We're currently our reading department. We're using the STAR reading test, which is Renaissance Place. If you have access to
STAR.
Mm-hmm. So the STAR test is one that you can then, and especially if you have an updated subscription, they do have some standards aligned resources that come with that. The teacher has to then go and match when the student it's identified that these are standards that they need to work on, but within it, there are actually resources you can go and get. It doesn't automatically assign those things to those students, but it does provide the resource that then these teachers during that intervention time could use. So we've had some success with that for sure. And at the middle school level, we've used things like for reading Anita Archer rewards. We have used research-based intervention programs that we have, gone to the special ed teacher and asked what kind of intervention program they've been using, as well as if you have a curriculum director. I don't know if you have that access to that in your small district, but
that's me.
That's you. You're the person, right?
Oh no.
Then we've used that. We've used different types of interventions, and actually, currently, our special education department has been using iReady. And they're using that as a screener as well as an intervention. It provides the intervention automatically, and there's a built-in progress monitor.
Okay.
With that, and so that's another thing that I know that that is available. Those are the types of tools that we would use here. But for us, we found that if everybody has that common time, then every single person, and even every para, our librarian, every adult in the building, and even if you're not a math teacher, you're still still teaching the math intervention. And so maybe the most needy kids, the lowest of those kids in those groups, they go to maybe the math teacher teaches that lowest, most intensive intervention, where the other teachers that perhaps are not as comfortable with teaching math, they may be teaching the enrichment end, but everybody's on board and everybody's teaching because they're all our kids. That's something we believe here strongly in, that they're all our kids. Even though I'm the reading teacher, I still help teach math, whatever that is. And the other thing is, if you guys still had your system of letting those kids check out of school early, then that actually decreases the number of kids that are then in an intervention class, and then your intervention groups could be smaller.
And for us, one of the greatest issues is that small staff, because we are a smaller district, but when we're looking at those interventions, there is still a large number that would be needed to address all students. So I think probably the most helpful thing that you shared was just merely allowing ourselves to keep that exit system for our students. I think sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to us, it's like if you can prove proficiency, you prove proficiency and you don't need the intervention. We may do another screener perhaps at winter, like mid-year or something, just to make sure, are they really still where they should be? But if they are there, they don't need the help and the intervention that we are providing for those kids, and then for the kids that need it. And I think that could help push those kids, and they can gain at least a few skills before it's time to test that maybe you could see that extra 7%.
And I think every time we've looked at it, we've looked at how do we put every student in a tier. And when we do that, it looks like we don't have enough staff members. So I think from here, the best thing for us to do would then be to look at what would those numbers be. And really from my position from data and curriculum, looking at the possibility of pairing students up with teachers into those smaller groups when we only look at the number that would still be on campus during that exit time and the ability to still sign out. I think those screeners, we're missing some pieces. We've got a lot of data. However, most of it is tied to annual tests. We're missing those pieces at the high school level that are predictive of their performance on a daily basis rather than that summary at the end of the year. So getting some of those key data points that we could pull in and look at. Like I said, we do have STAR, so I think we could look at that to start with, but then begin to invest some money and some efforts into choosing a screener that's going to really, truly progress monitor and allow us to keep track of the student growth.
Right. Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Well,
and you can just, focus on maybe, just to start, focus on one subject perhaps and then spread it out that way. But the other thing too that we found helpful is that when we've talked to our kids about our screeners, it's in your best interest to do your best you can on this test so they don't just blow it off. Right. Because if you do well enough, you're out of here.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much. We've just got a few seconds left. And I think we're going to go ahead and just start moving forward with this, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it works out.
Perfect.